These are questions all coming through my private community, so let's get started. My current situation is busy homework, family life. My desired situation is similar to the above, but with more fluidity, flow, harmony, peace, contentment, teamwork, growth, transformation, and communication. The problem is I lose my cool, get overwhelmed and triggered, annoyed by lack of communication and teamwork, and perceiving too much stubbornness of other family members. Therefore, my question is, how to best approach this? What's the optimum attitude and way to integrate non-dual post-recognition understanding into daily busy life, which is full of potential triggers, misunderstandings, strawman projections, accusations, blame, and triggers unconsciously onto oneself? This is from Greg. Thank you for the question, brother. Okay, so we first have to be very clear on where we're really at on this process, because what I gather is that you know your true nature, but the problem is you lose your cool, get overwhelmed, and you get triggered, and you get annoyed by the lack of communication and teamwork, and you're perceiving too much stubbornness of other family members. This tells me that there's still a lot of pre-recognition work to do. You see, post-recognition, there shouldn't be that many problems. There's still issues and still stuff that we have to kind of go through, but these things unravel on their own with our healthy cooperation. So just be very vigilant as to, very interested as to what you say. You want to know the optimum attitude, but post-recognition would be, you would be the embodiment of the attitude that you had recognized, hence the post-recognition. So it's like the attitude of, for example, post-recognition would mean that you fully recognized your true nature, absolutely full understanding. You live that understanding. You start to embody the qualities of that understanding. For example, if a man believes he's a dog and goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, yes, no, you're definitely a human. The man goes, no, I'm definitely a dog. And then the dog who thinks he's a man realizes, oh no, I was never the dog. I've always been the man. So it's like the example with the king and the pauper. The king goes out, wants to experience what it's like to be a part of the marketplace, right? A commoner. Goes down the street, ends up forgetting his true nature, falls poor, lives on the street, and he's already told his servants not to bother him, so they obey his command. So now he's stuck on the street and he's poor and doesn't know that he's the king. When he recognizes he's the king again, he doesn't have the same problems as the pauper. You see? He doesn't have the same issues. He goes back to the throne, goes to the castle, he's not living on the street, he's not being robbed, he's not having to rob people. He's not having the same issues. It doesn't mean, however, that the king then doesn't have his or her own issues. It does mean, however, that the same quality of issues are not there anymore. So just check in your experience, what qualities of these issues are there? Are they from the pauper or are they from the king? If they're from the king, the attitude is the expression of the king. So you then have to embody the qualities of what you are and unapologetically express that into your experience. This doesn't mean that we're perfect. It doesn't mean that we're going to always give the perfect response, the perfect attitude, the perfect action, but that's what we learn as the king. You see? We learn that. We learn that as infinite being in an individual experience, learning how to navigate the body and the mind and finding its own autonomy. We learn that through the process. So the best thing to be would be to always just, if you're ever stuck, just guide yourself with love and wisdom. Ask yourself, what would be the most loving thing to do that is in coherence with my highest love and understanding in this moment? And do whatever that says. And if you trust yourself enough, there will never be a problem with asking that, because you can trust yourself to always know that your answer is pure. If you don't trust yourself to answer that, then you need to go back to pre-recognition and realize, okay, well, what am I misunderstanding about what I am that I cannot trust myself with in these certain decisions and life experiences? That's what I would suggest for that, man. I hope this is helpful. So the next question is from Charlotte. She says, my current situation is I'm unhappy and dissatisfied with life. My desired situation is to be fulfilled. My problem is that things are not how I want them to be. Therefore, my question is, how can I come to terms with or change my dissatisfaction? And is this even something I should focus on? Thank you for the question, Charlotte. This is absolutely not something you should ever focus on. Reason being is because currently you're unhappy with where you are, which implies that you don't want what is currently happening, which implies you want something else. You want a different state of mind. You want to feel more fulfilled. And then your desire is to feel more fulfilled, as you said. And the problem is things are not how you want them to be. You would rather them be something else. Therefore, if you were to try and come to terms with or change your dissatisfaction, you would then be doing more resisting. So your current situation is resistance. You don't want what's currently happening. So you're doing things to try and change it. Then you would be suggesting to do more resisting in this more form, a more sophisticated form. It's a form that tries to consciously directly direct your attention towards changing your experience. The problem is when we try to change our experience. That's the cause of all suffering. We have an experience and we want to change it. We do not accept what is currently happening in our circumstances. Now, don't confuse me. Some people confuse me and say, oh, so I should just sit there while someone's being attacked or while someone's being robbed, or I should just allow someone suffering to be there and not help them. Absolutely not. Most people, in fact, resist helping people because of their resistance. They feel the natural urge to go and help or do something, but they resist that natural urge. So it's more resistance. Why do they resist it? I don't want to be seen. I don't want people to see me. I'm embarrassed. This is embarrassing. What if they don't need my help? What if I make it worse? All these mental chatter will then be a secondary resistance on our experience to prevent us from going and actually helping someone. So this acceptance is not necessarily always a relative yes. It can be the acceptance of a relative no. And what we need to do is develop and understand our true nature. The simple answer to this is to recognize, like back to the king and the pauper example, the pauper has to recognize she's the queen. She has to see that she is the queen, or the example of the dog who believes, or the man who believes he's a dog. The man who believes he's a dog has to recognize he's the man. In our instance, infinite awareness, infinite being, has to recognize itself. So in other words, we could say on a relative level, the human has to recognize its infinite nature. And in that recognition, we realize our nature is happiness itself. It's pure acceptance. It's pure acceptance. So if you see that, you will behave in accordance to that. That's the simple answer to this question. Recognize what you are. It's the answer to all questions. Recognize what you are on an experiential level, just like we do in these meditations in the community. And let that be the guiding principle on your life. The expression of our true nature, which is pure acceptance, we could say pure forgiveness, pure welcoming. What that looks like on a relative level when it goes through the mind, into the body and into the world is happiness, peace, joy, fulfillment, wholeness, forgiveness, welcoming, love, compassion, empathy. These are the qualities of love. We already have these qualities because the dog, who is really a man, isn't really a dog, so he still has human qualities, just like the human isn't really fundamentally a human. It's infinite being that is portaling itself through a mind which creates the human experience. So on the relative level, we are both infinite and finite in the sense of we are infinite and individual, and that's what we call the human being. And that's what we're experiencing. So we just embody the acceptance that we already are and infiltrate it and let it infiltrate our experience. That's how we find fulfillment. It's actually an inactive process. It's a byproduct of recognizing our true nature. We don't do that to remove our suffering. We do it because why would we not want to know what we are? Why would that not be the most important thing? If we want to be happy, we need to know the one that wants to be happy in order to be happy. Otherwise, who wants to be happy? It doesn't make any sense, right? So we have to know, who am I on a fundamental level that actually wants to be happy? That's the only way we're going to be able to make ourselves happy. Once we know that, the consequence is that we realize we are already happiness. That's the beauty of the process. So convert our interest. We can't desire to remove our suffering. We have to desire to see the truth of ourself. Let that passion, that desire, that interest be the guiding force of your path, and not the desire to remove suffering, because it creates more resistance. I hope this was helpful. Anamika, how are you? Anamika says, my current situation is dealing with a chronic pain illness and losing a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. My desired situation is to be able to find the meaning in my life and live a life that feels less effortful. My problem is that everything feels like a struggle and requires a lot of effort, dealing with burnout and fatigue. Therefore, my question is, what should I do to reduce the struggle and efforting? What should I do to bring myself back in alignment? I'm so tired of pushing through. I've sat with myself and just witnessed everything. So much resistance and shame coming up for me. Thank you in advance. So your question is asking how to be more in alignment. But the thing with wanting to be in alignment is that you must have a fundamental belief that you're not in alignment. And when you have this type of belief that you're not in alignment, it makes you want to do something. It makes you think, I'm not in alignment. Something isn't fundamentally right about me or my circumstance or anything else. And I need to do something to be more aligned. And in that belief, we create another problem. And the problem is that we will perpetually search for this alignment. And then when we seem to be aligned, we will be limited to the conditions that we have imposed on what that alignment means. So if your alignment means X, Y, and Z, you will have to stay in X, Y, and Z in order for you to feel aligned. And then anytime you're not in X, Y, and Z, you will not feel aligned and you'll be in the same battle. So the real thing here is that you still have a belief that your happiness is conditional. You still think that in order to be aligned, which by aligned you mean happiness, you want to be happy, because happiness is the ultimate alignment if we're going to give anything a measurement. You're still believing that happiness is a state of mind, and that it's a feeling, an emotion, a specific experience. And that belief is going to cause a lot more suffering for you. So when you say effort, we need to also be careful as to what we mean by effort. Effort is okay. We just need to know which effort we want. The effort of Roger Federer on the court is not a real effort. Although, if you watch him and even hear him, it sounds like a lot of effort, right? But it's not. The same with when I host the meditations, it's an effort on one level, but it's an effortless effort. So happiness is the effortless effort. Anything done in happiness is an effortless effort. This is what we call the flow state. The flow state, as we know it, the basketball flow state, the writing flow state, the flow state that we know in an activity, is not necessarily the flow state. It's an aspect of the flow state. So, for example, just because we experience a continuous flow of frictionlessness in an activity, in a sport, it doesn't mean it's only limited to that specific moment. We are constantly living in that effortless flow. The only time we would not seem to be in the effortless flow is in resistance. But even in resistance, we're still in the effortless flow. There's just effortless resistance. So if we want to be more in the flow, so to speak, happiness, it's the same answer. You are resisting your experience and you believe that fundamentally you need something in order to be happy. And the thing you want in order to be happy in this instance is to be aligned. You want alignment to be happy. Sitting with yourself and witnessing is a useful thing to do in some instances. The question would be, why are you witnessing? We are conditioned spiritually now, in this era, to believe that we are the witness and that witnessing our stuff helps get rid of it. This is the problem. We are witnessing away our feelings. That's not going to help anything. That's just adding now another layer of resistance. So we can't just be the witness, because why would we be the witness? It's like saying the sun needs to shine. In order for the sun to shine, in order for the sun to give light, it needs to shine. And it superimposes that it already has an option to not shine. It's always shining. The sun can't do anything more than it already is. So likewise, you as the witness, you're not just the witness, you are absolutely everything in your experience. The witness and the witnessed are the same thing. For example, the sound of my voice, there's no witness of it and then there's the sound. The sound of it and the witness of it are the same experience. It's just we've created a belief to think that we are separate from our experience. So the real effortlessness is when we bridge the gap between the distance that we seem to have as an individual from experience. So we're having an individual experience, but we're not an individual. You see, we are universal, having an individual experience. That's what creates the human experience. That's what creates a human being. So you need to see, ultimately, this complete peace that is always in the background that contrasts the suffering. If the peace wasn't always there, your natural state of being, you would not experience suffering, because there would be nothing to contrast the suffering. So once we see the naked peace of our being, we need to then drip feed those qualities into the content of our experience. We need to get it to deepen and deepen and understand while realigning the way we see the world. So if you recognize, most people recognize their true nature, but the problem is they haven't uprooted the sense of separation on a feeling level, and they haven't uprooted the sense of separation on an experiential level. So in other words, the world that they experience, everything that seems to not be consciousness, we could call it duality. They believe that duality implies separation, but it doesn't tell us separation. We could also, this is how I see it, this is how I live, duality, so to speak, the world that we experience, it implies reality. It doesn't just imply reality, it shines with reality. It's made of reality. So if we believe that reality implies separation, therefore we fall into separation when we perceive duality, we're then naturally going to find resistance, and therefore the trauma of separation triggers and we go over it again and again. So we need to spend more time with the naked aspect of ourself in order to then allow that pure essence of what we are to download into the mind, into the body, and into the world. And we can cooperate with that through these types of investigations. The thought yogas that I do, the meditations that I do are going to help us sink in. And then it kind of naturally expresses into the human experience. But in order to do so, we need to spend more time with the being aspect of our experience. Because if we get so accustomed to the trauma and the feelings and the sensations, we are in those moments resisting ourself. We are resisting the natural peace that we have instead of embracing it. So it's very simple. You can only struggle when you're resisting. Resistance is the resistance is the essence of struggle. So know what you are, know it. Just like if I say, know this hand, know that plant, know that cup, know your being. It's a non-objective knowledge. It's pure knowledge. Know it and keep knowing it. And know it as much as you can. Know it all day if you have to. Keep knowing it. Sit there and know it. Know it while you're pouring tea. Know it while you're sipping tea. Know it while you're in the shower. Know it while you're going on a walk. Know it while you're washing dishes. Know it while you're singing a song. Know it. Just know it, know it, know it. It's what you are. It's all there is to experience. And what we recognize is this knowing it, what it really means is being alive. We are simply being alive. Being alive is the nature of experience. Being alive is to be and to know of that existence. Know it. Just keep being it. Be it, be it, be it. It's like, and I say this poetically, it takes no effort to be it. You're already being it. So just be it. Just be alive. And let that experience seep. And then come back to the meditations that we do. And then realign your perspective of the world with how reality truly is, which means that there's no separation between the sound of my voice and you, the sensations of my body and myself. There's no distance in experience. Yes, I can perceive a distance. That's how I turn the camera on. That's how I type on words on a keyboard. But the typing words on a keyboard on the distance between me and the camera, the apparent distance, is not veiling the reality and the intimacy of experience, which is pure, infinite wholeness. Lack of separation. It doesn't hide that from me anymore. You see, the best place to be is in both. If we're in one or the other, it's still a limitation. We need to have this intelligent autonomy to not have the experience of individuality veil the experience of universality. I hope that helps. See you soon, Anamika. The next question is from Tiago. My current situation is that I am so excited about this journey. I am living this understanding more and more. I feel more and more at peace, even with my life falling apart. Financial situations, guy building a house stole 40 euros and not, oh my gosh, sorry about that, man. Holy smoke. My desired situation is to live this understanding, say yes to all experience, live in total surrender, and share that with the world, especially with my kids that are my life. My problem is procrastination. I have lots of ideas, but always postponing myself, a lot of knowledge in a lot of areas, and then I blame myself that I should have started long ago. And if I didn't stop and start with my kids, I would already have a much better life. Therefore, my question is, from the point of view of still feeling and believing in being a separate self, what is the best approach, actions, habits to finally living the truth and freedom? When you say believing yourself to be a separate self, my question would be, what is it that you do really believe? Do you believe that you are, when you say a separate self, some people say that some people think they believe they're still a separate self when they don't. This is why I always inquire really into what is it you actually mean by a separate self? Because the separate self in my dictionary is that which fundamentally believes they are separate, limited, and finite. So if that's what you believe you are, then you are going to keep suffering until you know you're not that. So just going off what you said, I get the sense that maybe you don't fully believe that you are a separate self. I think we had the conversation yesterday. And if you don't fundamentally believe that you're a separate self, then you need to inquire as to what still gives this hint, what is still channeling this feeling, you see? Because it must be a feeling at that stage. If you know your true nature, because you say you want to live this understanding, but if the understanding isn't that you are an infinite, imperturbable, peaceful, absolute being, well, there's no understanding to integrate, right? But then you say at the end that you believe you're a separate self. The two things don't align, you see? So I'm trying to figure out, what is it that you really mean? I get the intuition that you don't mean that you fundamentally believe you're a separate self, but you have this post-condition that makes you sometimes believe that. So the thing you need to do is integrate your understanding on an experiential level. If for the past 40 years, for example, you've been believing yourself to be a separate self and you've had one or two glimpses of being infinite, that's not enough alone to completely recondition your entire structure of the body and the mind. That's not going to recondition the way you perceive the world. It's not going to do much other than give you the intuition, to give you the energy to start processing it all. Then we need to come to a true realization. We need to come to the realization that I am absolutely 100% infinite and free. And at that stage, there's no question as to suffering or what we're doing or being a separate self. You see? So we need to be very clear. Where am I at ultimately? Do I still believe I'm a separate self, or do I know I'm infinite? If you know you're infinite, start integrating that process by asking yourself, okay, if I know I'm infinite, what is it about my experience that makes me believe I'm finite? And then uproot those things. So your question should be, where in my experience do I feel limited? If you say, okay, I feel limited because I know I'm infinite, but I can only perceive what's around me, for example. But if I was infinite, I should be able to perceive everything. Maybe I should be able to read minds. Maybe I should do this. You may also say, I know I'm infinite, but I feel like I'm in the body. When I move my body, I feel like I'm inside it. And that implies that I still think I'm the body. This is the thing to notice, and I hope other people recognize this too. Just because you feel like you're in the body doesn't mean you still believe that you're separate. It just means that you still have conditions that make it seem to be so that you are in the body. But if you know that's not true, then the next job is to uproot those conditions. So what I did with my teacher, for example, is whenever I'd have any form of, I would constantly every single day look for any limitation I could find in my experience, anything that made me believe on a subtle level that I was limited, that there was any evidence to suggest that I was in the body, that I was part of the old paradigm, that I was a material being that was limited to the body and the mind. I would look for it. And then the minute I found it, if I couldn't figure it out myself, how to resolve it, I'd just ask my teacher. I would say, hey, Rupert, I believe I'm in the head. Hey, Rupert, I still feel like I have a subtle sense of lack and I'm not sure what to do with it. Hey, Rupert, I still feel like my thoughts are taking place in my head and I feel like I am the thought aspect. I would just ask and then uproot it. So unless you can give me specific examples of where you feel limited, I would recommend going in your experience and asking, where do I feel like I am? And then if you have an objective answer, I'm in the body, I'm in the head, I'm in my arms, I'm in my legs. I feel like when I move my head, I'm in the head because I move. You see? I don't have the experience of moving a head. I'm not the head that moves, you see? I'm in the space. It's like this, there's no me that is moving the head. It's the head. I can appropriate the me. I'm not an idiot. I know it's this body and I identify with this body because it's important too. Otherwise I wouldn't be driving my car, eating my food, typing on my laptop. I'd be doing all sorts of random stuff. So it's necessary to identify with the body. It's an intelligent thing to do. We just don't want to appropriate the consequences of suffering that belief. You see, that belief is a reality. So we want to go through and we want to uproot these provisional, limited, residual habits that make us believe we are limited to the body. That would be the next step. So yeah, hope that was helpful, man. Feel free to jump on the calls that we have. I'll answer anything you need. I have a free community. The link is in the description if you want to take part in these Q&As, if you want to take part in the live meditations, which I don't usually upload here. I keep them for the people in the community. I'd love to see you there. So this is part one of this community Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope the answers were helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I will see you on the next part very, very soon. Take care, guys. Have an amazing day. Bye.